Growing up in Rockland County in New York, one of the most interesting places to visit was the abandoned Letchworth Village, which at one point was a major psychiatric center in that region. A more interesting fact about Letchworth is that it has since been named one of the most haunted places in the United States, which turned it into a hotspot for paranormal investigators even though it was private property. Now, I personally haven't experienced anything that I would refer to as paranormal, but a group of friends and I have been followed around by something on the property. It was the last time I decided to go with my friends to take pictures in the abandoned asylum, and because we had been there on many occasions, we weren't too worried about security, much less the paranormal rumors. So we casually made our way onto the property through the woods, along the outside of the premises, and began exploring the trashed and empty rooms and hallways, taking pictures of anything we thought seemed artsy to a bunch of teenagers. And as we were exploring one of the larger buildings, we all stopped in our tracks as we thought we heard something outside. Our minds immediately thought it was security, so we did our best to stay quiet and keep away from any windows until the coast was clear. And after a few moments of silence and no more sound outside, we continued walking the halls, only now we were being fairly cautious of our surroundings. Over the next 20 minutes or so, it was rather quiet, and we thought that any threat that was coming our way had passed. However, just as we let our guard down, we heard the sound of a door slamming closed. Only it wasn't the main door to the building, so it wasn't anyone coming in from outside. Instead, it was the door of a room that was down the hallway from where we were, a room that didn't have any windows that were accessible from the outside, meaning that whoever closed the door was in the room as we passed by it. I could feel the hair on my arms and neck standing and the sensation of chills rolling up and down my spine. Without sharing any words, we all looked at one another and began running to the nearest exit. As we all stumbled outside, we were happy to see that nothing or no one was following us. We all caught our breath and decided that it was probably just a breeze or something anyway, and we all had a good laugh about what happened. And believe it or not, we decided to stay and check out another building while there was still daylight. The building was similar to the first one we were in, only a bit smaller. As soon as we walked inside, we found a few good shots for the camera and had all but forgotten about our terrifying experience from moments before. We were soon reminded of it though, as we all stopped everything we were doing when we heard the sound of the main door rattling. It was as if someone was pushing against it and pulling on it repeatedly, but without holding the button down that unlocks the latch on the door, allowing it to open. We all stared at the door for a second, but as soon as we saw it begin to crack open and light begin to seep through, we all took off deeper into the building. Lucky for us, there was a broken window that had been used to unlock the door from the inside one of the first times we explored. We all sprinted to and through the empty window as fast as we could and made our way to the tree line. Once we were out of sight of the abandoned facility, we made sure that everyone was with us and began discussing what it could have been. We had gone to Letchworth at least 10 times and had never had a run-in like that one. A few miles down the road from my friend Derek's house was this old abandoned farm, and for years, we both talked about wanting to go and check it out. So when we turned 16 and Derek officially got his license, we decided to take a trip out to the farm one night and explore the property. Honestly, the most we expected to find there was maybe some old equipment, nothing too crazy. To this day, I'm still not sure what would have happened to us that night had we not been careful. It was around 10 p.m., and we decided to park Derek's truck on the side of the back road that we knew was right behind the property on the other side of a small stretch of trees. The two of us grabbed our flashlights and our phones began to make our way onto the property. Now, the day leading up to our exploration, we talked about our plan for that night, and we decided that first, we should check out the house. That was the main thing we wanted to see, and we figured if anyone caught us, at least we could see what was inside the large farmhouse. As we were exploring the upstairs of the house, I was startled when Derek grabbed my arm and pointed out of the window. I thought someone had seen us and called the cops, but when I looked out of the window, I didn't see anything at all. That's when he let me know that he could have sworn he saw somebody walking near the old barn on the other side of the yard. I thought he was just trying to freak me out, so I brushed it off and kept looking around the house. But then Derek said he wanted to go see what it was. I was hesitant to follow him, even though I thought he was just trying to mess with me, but despite our better judgment, we both made our way out of the house and began walking up the overgrown dirt path that led to the barn. We got to the large double doors, and Derek stopped me and began looking around if he was listening for something. But after a moment of silence, he began to open the barn doors. To our surprise, the barn was empty aside for a few rusted chains and small pieces of wood that looked as if it fallen right off the ceiling. I was relieved that no one was in the barn, like Derek had sworn, and we both began looking around. I walked around the ground floor. Meanwhile, Derek had climbed the ladder and was exploring the upper level. He called me up to look at something, but before I could make it to the top of the ladder, we both froze as the barn door shut. I called out for my friend, and he pulled me up the ladder and whispered to be quiet. That's when we heard it. There was a man muttering to himself from down below us in the barn. We both began looking around us for a way out of the situation. We didn't know who was below us, and we honestly didn't want to know. There was a large window that we knew we could jump out of, and it would only be about a 10-foot fall. We looked at each other, and before being able to figure out our plan, our decision to jump was made for us. Down below, we heard 5 words that haunt us to this day. I know you're in here. Without another thought, we both ran for the window and dropped to the ground, and immediately ran to the tree line and toward Derek's truck. The two of us didn't say a word the entire ride back to Derek's house. My little brother and I were on summer vacation in Nevada, and we heard about an abandoned ghost town nearby that we wanted to check out. We planned a night on the trip that we would visit the town and camp out just for the sake of exploration. And when we finally saw the town with our own eyes, we were surprised. I mean, it was like 4 rows of small mobile homes that all had been abandoned. Apparently, they were purchased by a company shortly before the economic crisis in 2008 and have since been abandoned. As we explored the town, we thought we would be a bit on edge, considering the fact that we were technically trespassing, but for some reason, it was a fairly calm experience at first. We went from house to house, checking out the insides of anyone that wasn't unlocked. Some of the interiors were in relatively nice condition. Meanwhile, others had been entirely stripped of all the wires, and the walls had holes all over the place. There was one house that stood out to us as we explored, though. At the top of the middle row of homes, there was one house that was taller than all the rest. It was the only one with 2 floors in it. Sure enough, we made our way over, the entire time hoping that the door was unlocked. And to our surprise, it wasn't only unlocked, but it was wide open. I slowly peeked my head inside just in case someone was living there, though it was supposed to be abandoned. But like many of the other homes, it was empty, aside from all the drywall on the floor from the holes in the walls where the wire was pulled. Since we assumed it was empty, like the rest, my brother and I went inside and began looking around. I went upstairs right away, and as soon as my foot touched the 2nd floor, I stopped. I don't know what it was, but I could feel something staring at me. By that point, my little brother had followed me up the stairs and was right on my heels. I didn't want to freak him out, so I kept calm and continued looking around the second floor. And as the two of us walked around what I assumed was the master bedroom, we heard the sound of a door creaking. My brother tugged on my sweatshirt and pointed into the hallway toward the bathroom door. I could see that it was slightly cracked, and that's when I saw what he was pointing at. On the other side of the door, I could see the reflection of eyes staring directly at us. I grabbed my brother and we ran as fast as we could down the stairs. As we made our way to the door, we could hear the loud sound of running footsteps above us. Whoever was in the bathroom was now following us. We sprinted out of the house and didn't stop running until we made it to the end of the small driveway. That was when we heard the front door of the house slam shut. I turned to look back, and I couldn't see anything through the windows of the first floor. But when I looked up at the room we had just been in, I saw someone. There was a man who had been wearing some sort of hooded jacket, standing in the window, looking down at me and my brother. Needless to say, we got back to my car and ended up deciding not to camp out there that night.